Hare Rama, Jai Prabhupada, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today I've picked a topic of failure as success. Failure as success. And I wanted to talk about the way Prabhupada viewed failure. Because he didn't view it in a material way. Prabhupada, in a sense, viewed anything done in Krishna consciousness as a kind of success. And And I want to begin by reading a quote. And I have to give some background information to the quote. But first, Panchakalpatarubhischa kripasindhavyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutare Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvise Sasunyavadi Paschachedasati Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. When Prabhupada first came to America, he was trying to get help from his godbrothers and also get help from the disciples of his godbrothers. So there was one brahmachari that showed some interest in helping Prabhupada. You have to loosen this, because this wasn't on tight. Loosen this, and then spin it. Yeah. Like this. That's good. So, what's going on? Yeah, that's okay. So, imagine Prabhupada's position. He's one person, and he's trying to spread Krishna consciousness. And he's thinking, I need help. Not only to help me personally, but I need help so that I can train the people that are coming. Can you imagine trying to spread Krishna consciousness and you're the only devotee? So he was trying to get help, and as you know, he wasn't getting anybody to come. Gaudiya Math had their own mission, their own service. But this one brahmachari, I forget who he was a disciple of. One of Prabhupada's godbrothers. He showed interest. And so Prabhupada said, please come, I need your help. This is what I need you to do. And then the disciple said, well, I have to ask my spiritual master. And then Prabhupada wrote him back and he said, this is Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. It's not my mission, it's our mission. But after he talked to his spiritual master, apparently the discussion they had was that preaching Krishna consciousness in the West is basically a waste of time. It's because you're not going to be successful. So he didn't want to send him. And he used the word ludicrous. He said that this effort to spread Krishna consciousness is ludicrous. Ludicrous means ridiculous, foolish, a waste of time. It also means foolishly impossible. I think there's a rapper, his name is Ludacris. Is that right? Yeah. Is that the right definition? Foolishly impossible? Utterly and foolishly, ridiculously impossible. So, I'm going to read you Prabhupada's reply to the ludicrous letter. And this was Prabhupada's last attempt to get help. He tried everywhere. And this was the only sign that possibly there may be help. This was like the last hope. So Prabhupada begins his letter by saying, so the controversy is now closed, and there is no need of help from anyone else. This was after he's saying that my spiritual master does not want me to come. So Prabhupada knew it's finished. He's not coming. So the controversy of whose mission it is, whether my guru will allow me, should I come, that's over. And there is no need of help from anyone else. So it seems that now Prabhupada is resigned, that he's going to do this himself. Nobody's going to help him. We are not always... So now Prabhupada's addressing this ludicrous comment. Like, you're wasting your time trying to preach in America. That's what's being said here. We are not always successful in our attempts at preaching work, but such failures are certainly not ludicrous. In the absolute field, both success and failure are glorious. Even Lord Nityananda pretended to be a failure at converting Jagai and Madai in the first attempt. Rather, he was personally injured in such an attempt. But that was certainly not ludicrous. The whole thing was transcendental, and it was glorious for all parties concerned. Prabhupada went on in the letter to explain that a preacher is like a soldier. And when you go to battle, especially certain battles, most of the soldiers die. And you're watching people die in front of you. So there's certain battles where it's likely you will not come out alive. And so Prabhupada used the example of a soldier because, what is that saying? We have a saying in the Marines in America. Something like ours is not to... It's something like, it's not a matter of living or dying, it's just a matter of doing your duty as a soldier. Does anybody know that? Ours is not to live or... Ours is not to wonder why, ours is not to live or die. Something like that. I forget. Or maybe... But, so Prabhupada used that example, that a soldier, it's not about succeeding or failing. That's not so much of a concern, it's just duty. You're a soldier and you fight. You're ordered to fight and you fight. So that's how Prabhupada was seeing himself. Had Prabhupada been concerned about failing, obviously he wouldn't have come to America because it seemed that it was likely he would fail. And when I look at Prabhupada's coming to America and analyze it in terms of success or failure, if you look at it externally, the first year was, or first 9 months was pretty much a failure. Not much was happening. But the way I see it, and I think the way Prabhupada saw it, was even if you're failing, but you're executing the order of your guru, you're successful. Even if there's no external success. Now for some of us, that's difficult because some of us have a very material success mentality. And so Prabhupada's saying that's not the spiritual perspective. The spiritual perspective is the success is in the effort, not in the result. Of course we want result, but obviously result, we're not always in control of result, right? So, what did Prabhupada say here? In the absolute field, both success and failure are glorious. So, let's say Prabhupada came to America, he tried to start Krishna consciousness, he sacrificed everything, but people just weren't interested. Still, it would be glorious. Don't you think? That he tried to do it? Don't you think that's glorious? I was in South Africa a few years ago. Bloemfontein? Rupa Raghunath, is it Bloemfontein? Bloemfontein. So one devotee had been there for 7 years. He had started a preaching center. And it was a very, very conservative area. Yes? The most conservative. And in 7 years, he hardly made a few devotees. And I was there in the Sunday feast, and there were like 7 people. So you imagine having a temple for 7 years, and only 7 people come to the Sunday feast, and 4 of them were Indians from India, who were students or something. You know, it's like... And it's not that he was not trying, and it's not that he was not a good devotee, and it's not that he was not a good preacher. That wasn't a good city to spread Krishna consciousness. The people were just not interested. And we were talking yesterday, Divyesh, and a few of us, how I was in Hyderabad, and the temple was established in 1976, and Sunday feast in Hyderabad is only a few thousand. Sunday feast in Chennai is about 2,000. Sunday feast Mumbai, Sunday feast, you know, wall to wall, standing room only. You can hardly fit in the temple. Mumbai and Delhi, very, very... So sometimes the same effort produces a much different result depending on where you are. So I think this is extremely important, both for us personally and both for us as leaders. Because we all know the story that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was very encouraging to anyone who would go out on book distribution, even if they only sold 1 magazine in those days for like 1 pice, you know, like a rupee or less. So in bhakti, we're looking at the mentality, and we're looking at the effort, we're looking at the sincerity, we're looking at the devotion. And of course, we're also looking for results, but sometimes we don't get them. Now, let's look at Prabhupada's life. I believe, and I think all my godbrothers would agree, that it was Krishna's arrangement that Prabhupada could not be successful in India until he came to America. Because if he were successful in India, let's say, for example, he went to Jhansi, and let's say it just took off, a big temple, it would have postponed his coming to America. Maybe postponed it for quite some time, and he would have been divided, and when things were difficult in America, he might have thought, well, in Jhansi things are going well, so why should I endeavor in America? Why should I waste time in America? So as we all know the story, everything that Prabhupada tried to do in India didn't really work out well. And of course, he had Bhaktisiddhanta's order on his head, and that was always his intention to come to the West. But if you look at those years after Prabhupada left home and analyze them materially, it won't look like a grand success. He did some preaching, he wrote some articles, as did many of his godbrothers. It would just appear that he was just another disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta doing some preaching work, trying to establish a center, and so forth. And it would also appear when Prabhupada came to America, the first year or so, not very successful. And even after the first year, and said, Bhaktivedanta Swami, what have you accomplished? Oh, I have initiated 5 devotees. I think the first initiation, I'm not sure, maybe September 66? Anybody know? Janmashtami. Janmashtami 66. How many devotees? Maybe 5?
11. It was 11 devotees.
11 devotees. So what's your reaching success? 11 devotees. So, well, maybe that would seem significant in the fact that they're Americans, but in light of ISKCON now, that doesn't seem that fantastic. Anyway, when I analyze Prabhupada's success, to me, his real success was his faith in Bhakti Siddhanta. And because of that faith got him on the boat. Without that faith, how could he have got on that boat? Right? And because of that faith, he was already successful. Just getting on that boat, that, you could see that you had to have a certain level of Krishna consciousness and a certain level of faith to be successful. So Prabhupada proved that by getting on the boat and giving up everything. And the success that followed was a byproduct of the faith. So that was his real success. So if you have the right consciousness, if you have deep faith, that's your success. And then the material success, it will come as a byproduct. And it will come in time. As I said yesterday in class, it will come according to your ability to be able to handle success. Krishna will give you more according to what you can handle. But first you have to have a foundation upon which Krishna can build on you. So when you have that foundation of faith, and you're not deterred by failure, you don't give up because you failed. Both internally your failure as a devotee, and externally your failure as a preacher. You don't give up. That's what Krishna likes. And then Krishna can use you to be a success. Now, I read something interesting. It was some research about success. And they said a common factor of success is it takes more time than most people think it's going to take, which is why people give up. And the second thing is that most people become successful right after the point when they're just about to give up. They've worked on it for so long and they say, that's it, I'm finished, I can't do this. That's usually just after that is when they become successful. But I think in Prabhupada's case, it was a little different because he had the order of his spiritual master. And he used to say, as his spiritual master would say, if I could make one moon, one pure devotee, one moon can light up the whole sky. Many, many stars are not as bright as one moon. So if I could make one pure devotee, I would consider that I'm a success. Because that one pure devotee would then take Krishna consciousness out to the world and make another pure devotee. And as long as there's a pure devotee, it would be successful. So we can see that Prabhupada wasn't analyzing his success on the basis of how many devotees, how many books, and so forth. Although certainly that's a way to measure success, and certainly he gave us numbers. He told us to open 108 temples. He told us, before I die, open 108 temples. So that was more for us. We needed that to motivate us. But Prabhupada's concern, as I saw it and understood it, his first concern was that the people who joined him would become Krishna conscious. That was his first concern. And so for Prabhupada, as we said yesterday, if he was going to measure success, it was in terms of the purity that was existing within the hearts of his disciples and within the movement, not in the number of buildings and so forth. So if we are going to be able to remain enthusiastic and determined, we will need to have this mentality that the effort and the sincerity and the faith is success, not the result. Because if you can get a result without the proper consciousness, without the proper level of faith and the proper level of Krishna consciousness, then you can get success. Then you'll start to think that is how I define success, by producing external results. We had discussed yesterday how in book distribution sometimes we weren't straightforward. That's an example where we were looking for success without being successful internally. We were looking to produce external success without cultivating internal success. And I think any of the devotees that distributed books in that way would tell you it was a lack of faith in giving Krishna consciousness purely. We didn't have that faith that people would accept it or we could give it purely. So we relied on something that wasn't so pure to produce results. And Prabhupada never really encouraged that. So let's read some more. I have some more letters to read. So this is very interesting. I don't know if you know this, but one of our devotees, I think he was running as an independent in America for president of the United States. Did you know that? This was during Prabhupada's time. They had formed a political party and Prabhupada encouraged it, and it was called the In God We Trust Party. And so he went out in a suit and tie and a tilak and shaved head and gave his platform of Krishna consciousness. And so this is what he's saying. And so Prabhupada's telling him what to say. He would go out in these political rallies and he would speak, just like an ordinary politician. This is what you say. They've come here thinking that they will solve all their problems, but this place is like a prison house. The people are like a wealthy man's son who has come to the prison house by misfortune. Somehow, they've gotten the idea that they will solve all their problems in the prison house, but they will never find happiness there. They've forgotten that they are sons of a wealthy man. So they should be reminded. This is the sum and substance of the purpose of human life. Could you imagine that as your political platform? Quite interesting, huh? And Prabhupada said, you speak like this. So now this devotee Balavanta is explaining. And basically we did that. But we didn't get many votes. After the election, I wrote to Prabhupada and said, we didn't get many votes. Prabhupada wrote back, it doesn't matter that you have not gotten many votes. I have seen that you have not compromised our philosophy. My spiritual master also never compromised. So Krishna will note what you have done to try to make them Krishna conscious. I am proud of you. Go on in this. There is no failure for the devotee. So what is Prabhupada saying here? He's saying you didn't become president, so we can use this as a general example of you didn't achieve what you set out to achieve. Said, but you didn't compromise your principles. So I'm proud of you and Krishna is pleased. So therefore, because Krishna is pleased, you're a success. That is ultimately the definition of success. So I please Krishna, I didn't produce an external result, and I'm successful. Is that good? Yeah. Let's use this as a personal example. I'm trying to be Krishna conscious, but I'm not doing it perfectly. I'm sometimes slipping, and I get back up and I try. I think it's important to realize that Krishna appreciates when you're trying. That gives Krishna pleasure. And I think it's important to remember that when you slip, when you become weak, and you feel like, what's the point of going on? It's at that point that you really have an opportunity to please Krishna, because Krishna sees that you're down. And when you don't give up, then Krishna sees, yes, he didn't give up, she didn't give up. And you've just pleased Krishna, even though you just made a mistake. Or maybe you even broke a regulative principle, but you're regretful and you're trying to improve. That in itself becomes another form of success, even though you just failed. You understand? Because when you fail, what you do after is very crucial to how you're going to continue in Krishna consciousness. Because when you fail, that's the perfect point for Maya to come in and nail you. You understand, nail you? We can say, shoot you. That's the perfect time, because you're discouraged, you feel guilty, you don't feel like, you feel, what's the use of continuing? So Maya's like, okay, now she's weak, now he's weak, it'd be very easy to shoot him. You agree? So if we can think that at that point I have an opportunity to show Krishna that I won't give up, then we should understand that Krishna is very pleased with that mentality. You know, if we fail, we're usually very hard on ourselves, a lot harder than Krishna is on us. Yeah, we can be very hard on ourselves when we fail. And Krishna is saying, well, if you fail and you get back up, and you regret your failure, then you're a sadhu. But we think, oh, I'm just a dog. I'm just an animal. Or I'm useless, or worthless. So Krishna doesn't think that way about us. But Krishna sees, okay, I made a mistake, but I've rectified myself. And in fact, sometimes Krishna will put us in positions where it almost seems like a leela, where we had to make the mistake. It's like we couldn't not make it. It was just circumstantially a mistake was made. But it was there to caution us, or to purify us, or to test us, or to show us, don't do that again. That's not safe. To awaken us to do something. And when we learn the lesson, we say, oh, it seems like Krishna put me through this because I'm weak in this area. And he wanted to show me exactly how weak I am. And I started to give into my weakness. But finally, in realizing my weakness, I did something to help myself. And Krishna is happy, he's pleased. So you have this opportunity, even in weakness, to please him by your attitude. And you have an opportunity, even in failure, to be a success by not giving up. Does that make sense? Yes?
It makes sense, but it's very difficult.
We have to, it'll be easier if we redefine what it means to be a failure or what it means to be success. There's a nice saying that people don't fail when they fall. They fail when they don't get back up. And if you analyze Krishna consciousness and you analyze your conditioning, then you can understand that unless you have that mentality, you won't be successful, because you will fall. I mean, I don't want to curse you, but as conditioned souls, you'll slip a little bit, or you'll slip a lot. That's not surprising. So, it's therefore necessary to have a mentality that can see the failure not as failure, but only see it as failure if I don't do anything about it. Otherwise, if I see it as failure, then at that point, I become discouraged. So, could you become more enthusiastic after you fail? Is that possible? Yes, it is. How would that be possible? Because you realize a weakness you have. And then you realize that I have to be more strict in this area. I have to be more enthusiastic. I have to be more determined. So the failure could actually inspire more bhakti. If you don't allow, if you understand, okay, I failed, but I didn't fail because the only way I could fail is if I give up at this point. Otherwise, it's not a failure. And some people will say, it's not a failure, it's just information. Okay, that didn't work. Don't do that again, it didn't work. It's information. So now I know. Thank you, Krishna, for showing me that this doesn't work, and I can't do this. Thank you for showing me that. So it's not a failure. So if you understand that even in failure, I have a chance to please Krishna through remorse and rectification. I'm sorry, and I rectify myself. And how do we know Krishna's pleased? 9:30. Apichat Sudharacharo. You're a sadhu if you do that. Even you do something bad, it doesn't matter. As long as you regret it, and as long as you're determined to rectify it. Let's say you don't do something bad, but you have no real determination to be Krishna conscious. In a sense, that's worse. Because at some point you may be shot down. So, it's very important to put success in a proper context. The context that if I don't give up, I'm successful. Without analyzing it externally. What have I achieved? What have I done? But the fact that I won't give up and I keep going on, that's my success. Or as we read here, let me read what Prabhupada said again. Krishna will note what you have done to try to make them Krishna conscious. I am proud of you. Go on in this. There is no failure for the devotee. Krishna will note what you have done. So let's say you have trouble. You feel like giving up. And you don't give up. Krishna will note that. He didn't give up. She didn't give up. So sometimes I think that these kinds of failings are actually special opportunities. Because as I'm failing, I can do something to show Krishna that I'm willing to turn around. Like let's say I have a challenge in my life, that I'm doing something I shouldn't do. That becomes an opportunity to show Krishna, I'm going to detach from that. I'm going to do something different. So the thing that's pushing you down then becomes the thing that pulls you up by giving it up. Now I have an opportunity to give up something for Krishna because I'm attached to something that's very bad for me.
What is the right time to make the decision? Shall I continue or shall I give up?
There's no question of giving up. Really, the day you become a devotee, you should make that decision, I'll never give up. You only really need to make it once. It's not a daily decision. It should be made once, and then that's it.
But it's also said, especially if we have certain services we can't really do and it becomes too difficult, then the question is, like, how many times do I have to endeavor to try it, or when should I?
For service. That's a different topic. That's more of a practical detail.
Are you talking of Krishna consciousness in general?
Yeah, I was specifically referring to dealing with your own inner demons. But if you want to talk about service, there's one context in which Prabhupada spoke about service, and that's the context of always being engaged in service. So if one service is particularly debilitating you, it's like it's just not your nature, or the circumstance of that service is very unhealthy for you, then you may have to adjust that. And we could say that the more Krishna conscious you are, the more you'd be able to adapt. But if you can't adapt, rather than losing your Krishna consciousness, you just alter your service. The main thing is just don't give up. Now, if you're altering your service every 6 months, then that means there's a problem. It's a deeper issue. If it's just once in a while, and you realize that I engaged in a service that really is not compatible with who I am, that's different. That's not such a big thing to adjust. At the same time, the more Krishna conscious you are, the more able you will be to do different services. At the same time, we should be inspired to engage according to our nature. But the foundation of that whole idea is be engaged happily, enthusiastically, with determination, sincerely. So it's really a question of adapting to what is necessary in your particular situation, according to where you're at, so that you can be in a good situation to serve. So that's important. And when the situation is good, still there will be obstacles. That's inevitable. And then we go back to the original point. If I'm sincere, Krishna will be pleased. And if Krishna is pleased, I'm successful. And that's where it starts. A lot of us won't do certain services because we're afraid we won't be successful. So that can be a problem when your spiritual master wants you to do something. And you say, no, I don't want to do it, I won't be successful. You can discuss that, of course, with him. Maybe it's practical that you do something else. But let's say, for example, he wants you to do that. So that's a nice opportunity. And even if you feel that you won't do well, you try your best because you were asked to do it. And he'll decide whether or not you did well, or he wants you to continue. So that's the proper mentality. And if you have that mentality, then it's easier to do something even if you think you're going to fail, because failing is no longer the issue. The real failure would be the failure to try. Do you understand? I don't want to do it because I'll fail. No, now you just failed because you failed to try. And then we have to look at this also from a point of view of false ego. Because sometimes when we say, I don't want to do it, I think I'll fail, it's not out of consideration of the interest of spreading Krishna consciousness, it's just out of false ego. I don't want to be embarrassed in the community of Vaishnavas for failing. Right? Or I'll be known as inept, not capable, not intelligent. So better I don't do it, then I won't embarrass myself. But you just embarrassed yourself by not executing the order of your guru. I remember that when Prabhupada would give us an order, we were so excited, we felt fortunate that we had an order. Wow, we got an order from our guru. We didn't think so much, can I do it or not? We just thought, this is an order. So the order in itself was very valuable to us. And so once you had an order, then, okay, let me try to sincerely execute the order. And if my spiritual master blesses me, we'll become successful to the degree that he blesses me. But the effort itself was the real joy. Oh, I have an order and I'm making an effort. That was the joy. That was the happiness. So I think that's extremely important. Because that can help you overcome your fear of failure. And it can help you overcome lots of resistance to doing something. I can't do that, I've never done it before, I'm not good at this, etc. Okay. But your guru wants you to do it, so just do your best and don't worry about it. Now you're successful.
Sounds so easy.
And let's say your spiritual master asks you to do something, but you could do something else better, and so you decide to do the other thing better. Now you're a failure even though that was successful because you didn't do what he told you. But it actually is easy. What is difficult is to be in the material concept of success. That's difficult because you can't control your success. Like you go to Bloemfontein in South Africa, spend 7 years there and make, one devotee every 3 years. That's pretty depressing if you're looking at success in terms of the numbers. If you feel gratified that, well, I made an effort for Prabhupada, it appears this is not the right city. At least you're gratified that you tried. You executed the order of your spiritual master or of Prabhupada. And this is the result you got. That's actually easy. It's much easier to serve that way than to be serving in terms of being overly anxious about getting certain results. Now, sometimes, obviously, you have to produce specific results because there's a specific project that requires specific results. But the point I'm making is that even if you're not qualified or you feel you're not qualified, but if you've been given that order, you can say, Guru Maharaj, I don't think I'm qualified. And he might say, well, just do it. And then you just do it. Like Balavanta ran for president, you just do it. And you do your best, and whatever happens, happens. If you're a leader, and let's say someone tries very hard, but they don't achieve the success that you wanted, it's very important that we, as leaders, appreciate the effort. Because if we only judge by the result, we may be neglecting the effort, and then they'll become discouraged. Because we want to appreciate the effort because they didn't get the result. Because as we know, the result may come, it may not come. Sometimes results come and you're not really doing much. And vice versa. Sometimes you do a lot and results don't come. Have you ever done book distribution? And somehow, astrologically that day, nobody will take a book? And there's, everything you did yesterday to distribute books, it doesn't work today. You don't know what to do. You don't know what else to do. Or vice versa. It doesn't matter what you say, everybody takes a book. And you could say, hey, did you see The Man in the Moon? Oh, I'll take the book. It's just, some days are like that. And anyone who's done book distribution has had to learn to be somewhat detached from whether they're going to be successful that day or not, because they can't remain enthusiastic if they're attached. So we've learned this lesson on book distribution, haven't we? Yes? You have to. We were saying the other day on a morning walk that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has asked or prayed that we get a taste for the holy name. So we can be thinking, well, maybe the next bead I'll get a taste. Or maybe the next bead. Maybe this one. Maybe this mantra is going to be that one. Of course, you go on day after day, week after week, thinking, maybe today is the day. Right? But that mood of someday it's going to come and I'm waiting for that day, that's the proper mood. I don't know. I don't give up. Oh, I've chanted for 10 years, it didn't come, so I'll just hang the beads up. What's the use? No. The attitude of the devotee is like, what was it, Mukunda? He was given mercy. Mahaprabhu said, well, you'll get mercy in 1,000,000 years. And he was so happy to hear that. And the devotees say, why are you so happy? It's like a curse. He said, but he said I would get the mercy. It's just going to take 1,000,000 years. So what an amazing example of how attached he was to the mercy. He was okay to wait 1,000,000 years for it. So if you continue with your devotional service, someday that taste will come. I can't say when, but we should be anxious for it. And that's what keeps us going. Because if you give up, then you won't get the taste. Once you give up, you've lost it, You're gambling, putting money in the slot machine. You get frustrated, and I'm not going to win anything. So now you leave the casino. Now there's no chance you'll ever win. So chanting is a little bit like gambling. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Someday, maybe I'll win the jackpot. Shuddha Nam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Finally, I got some taste. Krishna, Krishna. I can't stop chanting. The name is chanting me. I'm not chanting anymore. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I can't stop. No. There was a devotee named Krishna Priya, and she was sitting in the Bhagavatam class of her guru, and she couldn't stop chanting. And he got upset. Stop chanting, I'm speaking. I can't. My tongue won't stop. I don't know what to do. Like, it won't stop. I pin it up. I don't know. But if we stop the process, how will we achieve that? We won't. So therefore, a devotee thinks, Krishna consciousness, it's so precious, it's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. I can't give up the process, because if I do, I won't get it. And that effort, that determination, that is what pleases Krishna. More than what's happening right now, externally. Krishna, I'm so attracted to so many things in this world. It's driving me crazy. I'm such a bad devotee. But still, I won't give up. Krishna notices that. When it's hard for you, and you feel like giving up, and you don't, Krishna notices that. And we have to remember that. At that time when it's really hard, you have such an opportunity to please Krishna, because he knows you don't want to do this. In a sense, you almost have a greater opportunity to please him than if you're on the stage of Ruchi, because it's very natural. But on the stage where it's not natural, And you're going on, even against all odds. You have it's such a wonderful way to please Krishna. You agree? So it's a contextual understanding of success, which differs from the material understanding of success. Different acharyas have ascribed different meanings to the holy name. And one of the meanings they ascribed was, Krishna, let me be pleasing to you. So that's the heart of a devotee. The devotee wants to be pleasing to Krishna. So if I know I can be pleasing to Krishna by making an effort to do the best I can, then I can be satisfied with that. Even though the result isn't coming the way I would like it to at this point in time. And that's what will keep you determined. And as I just said, the other attitude is, I have to get this. I have to get prema. I have to. And no matter how many times I fall, I have to get it. I'm going to keep going. That's the attitude. And Krishna sees that. If you have that attitude, Krishna sees that, and Krishna is saying, yes, my man, you will get prema. I will give it to you. Because you want it and you won't give up. So what Prabhupada has tried to do for us, in a sense you could say he's tried to allure us. Here it is, prema. You can't get this anywhere in the world. This is so rare. You can't get it in other ages. It's so precious. Now you can get it here. So don't give up. Just keep running the race, because someday you'll get it. That's Prabhupada was trying to allure us to prema. It's so precious, it's so special, don't give up. Someday you'll get it. And when you get it, what will you think? All that struggle and all that difficulty, I'm glad I went through it and I didn't give up. That's how you'll think. And if you give up, at the end of your life, you'll think, I was such a fool, I gave up. And now what do I have? Just an old body. And not very good consciousness. Have you ever made a mistake that you've regretted? And you've regretted it a year later? 2 years later? 5 years later? So imagine the regret you would have if you give up your Krishna consciousness, or you allow yourself to not progress steadily through your life, and at the end of your life you'll look back. You'll look back at your life with extreme regret. Why did I do that? That was stupid. Don't you think? And if you don't, you'll look back at your life and you'll go, I love you. Pat yourself on the back. I did it. I didn't give up. I was success. Not that I'm the greatest devotee in ISKCON, and not that I've achieved the greatest things, but I didn't give up. That's my success. I kept trying against all odds. What day astrologically that Radhe Govindas? Astrologically that day. What day? What did I say? You go back over these comments. I have to remember what I said. That's like.
You said that there are days when we are studying.
Oh, astrologically, yeah, that's true. I learned astrology from book distribution, and sometimes it's just you go across the street and different is different across the street. It's amazing, yeah, astrology, but certain days. Yeah, book distribution, yeah, we got it, yeah. Certain days are bad days. Burijan Prabhu said something beautiful. He said, you could think that when you're chanting and you're not getting a taste, it's really difficult to go on when you don't have a taste. And you're trying to get a taste, but it's not coming. You could think Krishna is sitting there watching you, looking to see, what are you going to do now? Okay, you're chanting and there's no taste. So what does that mean? Put your bead bag down and watch a YouTube video? Or are you going to continue and Krishna's watching? And as you continue with determination, at some point Krishna says, yes, and he gives you a taste because you passed his test. So he could take away a taste just to test you. What will you do now? Will you chant to please me, even though at this moment it's not really pleasing to you? Or because it's not pleasing to you, will you just give it up? Okay, chanting's finished. No taste. So it's the same point I was making before. It then becomes an opportunity. There's no taste, but that becomes an opportunity. Now, Krishna's not giving me a taste, but so what do I do now? Do I just give up? Or do I show him? No. I'll continue. Or something is alluring me. Something is disturbing my mind, some attraction. What do I do now? Krishna wants to see. What are you going to do now? There's a test. Something is difficult. I'm going through lots of difficulties. I could just give up. It's such an easy way out, is to give up, isn't it? I'll just give up. Wow, Prabhu, you're great. You just give up. No, you continue. Wow, it's amazing. Even though it's difficult, you continue. And that's how we become Krishna conscious. That's how you get mercy. Because you're showing Krishna you want it. And Krishna will never deny what you want. But he might test to see how much you want it. Okay, well, how much do you want the holy name? I'm going to take away your taste. Are you going to put your beads down now and wait till tomorrow? No, you're going to continue chanting. Oh, you have this obstacle now you're facing. Are you just going to lay down, pretend you're dead, or are you going to stand up and deal with it? Oh, you're standing up and dealing with it. Oh, very good. I'll help you. So that way we see all these obstacles as opportunities to please Krishna. And even though it was difficult, I continued. And Krishna says, yes, here is my devotee. Let me give them mercy. We were saying the other day, we should expect the mercy. That's a sign of bhava. You expect mercy. And Krishna has promised that he will reciprocate. Tamam prapadyante. So you know, if you don't give up, he'll reciprocate. He will reward you. Should I read something else?
I also had a question before.
Let me read something. It may actually answer your questions, but this is a little different angle. This is a conversation. Who is actually searching after success? Success is not for the fool. Anyone who is trying for attaining success, for him, failure is also success because he's making progress. Okay, I'm trying to do something, but I'm not doing it perfectly. But I'm getting better. Like all of you are trying to chant your rounds every day, and all of you are trying to be sincere devotees. But maybe you feel you're not successful. But because you're trying, you're getting better. And because you're getting better, that's your success. That's what Prabhupada is saying. If you can be a little better today than you were, or this week than you were last week, or this month than you were last month, even though externally it's not very good, but because it's better than last month, then Prabhupada defines that as success. You like that? Improving is success, even if the improved position is not that great. Okay, let me say something else. I think this is very important to understand. We are very fallen. You agree? And so the fact that we're even doing devotional service is completely amazing. Because we come from very degraded backgrounds from a Vedic perspective. So with our backgrounds, not being Brahminical, being very Rajasic and Tamasic, it's to be expected we're going to have lots of problems becoming pure devotees. That's pretty normal. And if you focus on that reality, that you have lots of problems, then it's going to be difficult to execute Krishna consciousness. So it's better to focus on the determination to continue in spite of the problems, in the understanding that the problems are normal, because we're all sick. Could you imagine you're in the hospital and you're really sick and the nurse gives you medicine and you say something as stupid as, "I'm not going to take the medicine because I'm sick." So that's what we're doing when we lose our determination. I am so fallen, I'll just give up. It doesn't make sense. Being fallen is acknowledged. Prabhupada knew he was making disciples who were quite fallen. He knew that. But that wasn't his focus. His focus was on the process. I'm going to remind you of what we read in Ekachakra. I think I reminded you last night, but I'll remind you again. Because this is a very important statement that Prabhupada made. And it forms the basis of the preaching of Krishna consciousness. If devotees are pure in action, it doesn't mean pure in heart. Pure in heart and pure in action are different. Pure in heart we don't have. But we can be pure in intention and we can be pure in action. And there's a difference between being pure and being pure in intention. You may be impure. Not you may be. We are all impure. But we can be pure in intention. And we can be pure in action. So Prabhupada said, if you're pure in action, which means you're following the principles that Prabhupada has given, you're chanting your prescribed number of rounds, you're pure in intention, you're doing it to please Guru and Krishna, then when you chant the holy name, your chanting will make other people devotees, because it will contain the same purity as the chanting of Lord Nityananda. Is that amazing? That's amazing. So the purity is in the action and the intention. And then the purity within the heart will come gradually. Okay. Yes, so question, who had a question? Yes. Krishna Karshan, you had a question?
Partially answered. You almost answered.
All right, we'll ask the question and see if I can finish answering.
I just wanted to ask you on the chanting of holy names.
he said that, like he gave this example that Krishna is watching us and watching what we will do if we will, like for the japa.
Yes. Krishna's watching us, see what our next move is.
Yeah. So Krishna is being pleased by us not giving up.
Yes.
But at the same time, we know that, just chanting with the offenses, or chanting doesn't really
help.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's a good question.
To me, it's like, it looks like a person has a certain, we know that every person has a certain love language, as it's called, and if the other person is trying to please him in his own ways, but the other person doesn't really like it, then it's going to kind of bother the other
Which person? The person you're trying to please doesn't like it, or the person who's trying to please?
Trying to please you, by, I don't know, bringing her sweets, but she doesn't really take much sugar, and I just bring her all these sweets and think that she should love me. But
yeah, okay.
It bothers her. So it might be the same with the chanting.
Okay, so Vainarati is saying, but if I'm impure and I don't have a taste, and Krishna's testing me, but maybe if I chant, it's just going to make it worse, because I'll be displeasing him by my chanting, because it's offensive. That's definitely a Vainarati question. Let's say I'm not chanting properly, but I want to. That's the key factor. And if I want to, Krishna, help me chant properly. I'm not chanting well. I want to chant purely. That is the proper mentality. So it's not offensive. And you'll be purified by that mentality. I think perhaps we have maybe indoctrinated devotees in a way that they're overly fearful about offenses. We should be cautious about offenses, but maybe overly cautious to the point where we think we're making offenses when we're not. And if I think I'm making offenses when I'm not, that can have a very bad effect on me. Then I feel more guilty or more useless and so on. So the intention with which we chant is what's most important. So even if you're not chanting well, but your intention is to chant well, then that's the right mentality. And it's not offensive. Even though it is offensive, it's not offensive. It may be offensive externally, but it's not offensive internally. Okay, I'm distracted. That's one of the offenses. But I'm trying not to be distracted. Krishna, please help me focus. Hare Krishna, I want to hear. I want to feel. I want to pray, but I'm distracted. Please help me. That intention, even though you're distracted, it overcomes the offense. Because ultimately, if the offense has to be seated in a bad mentality. Then we can say, yes, that's offensive. You don't care, you don't try, just criticize everybody, you're making no effort to improve. Yeah, that's offensive. So, I think it's important for us to remember, and you specifically to remember, that Krishna appreciates the effort in spite of the result. Because if you don't remember that, you'll give up making the effort because you're not getting the result. So then you'll think, if I'm not getting the result, why make the effort? And so this whole class is geared towards understanding how Krishna is pleased by the effort. So that's very important. The effort, the intention. It doesn't mean we neglect producing practical results, but sometimes those results are Bloemfontein results. We can't control them. It's just with the wrong situation. Is that okay? Okay. Yes?
Some time ago, I shared on Facebook a little, short paragraph from your book, and I remember that when I read it, I was wondering about one statement, and it's regarding this discussion.
You're going to read it? You have it?
Yes, I can read it.
She's going to read a statement from my book.
About, keeping enthusiasm after you fall.
Oh yeah, keeping enthusiasm after you fall.
The book is saying that Rupa Goswami recommended to be enthusiastic even if we are not enthusiastic.
I have to repeat it. So Rupa Goswami recommends be enthusiastic even if you're not.
And I remember that when I read it, I was wondering what it really means, because when we are after the fall, when we fall, we are losing enthusiasm, and we just keep it.
Okay.
We are discouraged.
So she's asking how to be enthusiastic after you fall, which is kind of an odd time to be enthusiastic.
Because it's also said in this paragraph that we are giving an example that, let's say that someone is making himself a bit artificially enthusiastic, like saying, oh, Gauranga, and we are becoming enthusiastic. And this is for me a kind of being for a moment just feeling the enthusiasm. After that, again, we can feel this.
Well,
because enthusiasm for me is something internal, not external.
Okay. It's something internal. Krishna Karshana is saying if it's just external, it's not real, it has to be internal. Yeah. Okay, so now we're in a situation, we're given the example in my upcoming book that's going to be out soon, I hope. We were trying to get it out in December, and now it's February. But I think the printer just got the money, or is going to get the money soon. So, in my analysis of this situation, you make a mistake, or in this case, you fall down. Naturally, you're discouraged. So how and why would you be enthusiastic after you fall down? It doesn't make any sense. My analysis was, if you're not enthusiastic to rectify yourself after a fall, that you're in a dangerous situation. So you have to. It's like what are your choices in that situation? To be enthusiastic or not, basically, are your two choices. So when Rupa Goswami says be enthusiastic, then we could say what you said. We could say, well, if you have to be enthusiastic, if you have to tell someone to be enthusiastic, then I guess it's artificial. So that was my analysis of his verse. That and if you have to tell someone to be enthusiastic, it means they're not enthusiastic. So for all the people that have genuine enthusiasm, they're already on a higher level, and that's the first verse of Nectar Devotion. So my understanding was that he's basically saying, Prabhus, Matajis, you better be enthusiastic, because if you're not, Maya's going to be way more enthusiastic to knock you down than you are to fight. So I wrote that based on personal experience when I was a younger devotee and I had difficulty, and I realized at that point when I had difficulty, if I don't fight back with some artificial enthusiasm and force myself, I'm already going down, and there's a momentum to go down, and I have to fight back. And I would say also that enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness is not entirely artificial, because this is the best thing to be enthusiastic about. can be enthusiastic about so many things, but even I'm not enthusiastic at the moment because I'm discouraged that I fell down. But Krishna consciousness is the best thing to be enthusiastic about. Therefore, I'm going to be enthusiastic about it because by falling down, I'm losing it. And I don't want to lose it. So I kind of force myself, knowing that if I don't force myself now, the energy is going against me. Like, I've given the example many times that, I wouldn't tell you to be enthusiastic about eating. Because once we're hungry, we're enthusiastic, and we get hungry 2 or 3 times a day. So you would only say to a person who doesn't eat much, you need to be enthusiastic about eating, you don't have a good diet. But for most people who have good appetite, what do you say? Prabhu, you really need to be more enthusiastic about eating. No, we'd say, we wouldn't, there's no question. Why would we talk about that? So that's my understanding of that shloka. Because we're not enthusiastic, we're being told, here's the thing to be enthusiastic about. Hridayananda Maharaj made a nice point years ago. He said, this was his analysis, and you can see if this makes sense to you. He said, it's not that you lose enthusiasm, it's just your enthusiasm goes somewhere else. At least if you're in the mode of passion, it'll go somewhere else. Yeah, tamagun maybe, no enthusiasm. Enthusiastic to sleep. But if you're losing your enthusiasm, just check yourself and saying, is my enthusiasm going somewhere else, and that's why I'm not enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness? We have one question here. Why does a devotee has to expect mercy if he sees himself fallen? Because it's the only way not to be fallen. And he feels helpless. Krishna, if you don't help me, that's it. I can't help myself. So I expect your mercy. I have to expect it. And expecting mercy is a sign of faith. Yes, Prabhu.
I was reflecting on how Srila Prabhupada brothers refused to help him.
Yes.
So how should we understand that arrangement?
Prabhupada's godbrothers refused to help him. How should we understand that arrangement? I can give you my personal opinion. I think other godbrothers agree, or maybe they all agree. Put yourself in our shoes. We're coming to ISKCON. It's a young movement. It's new devotees. We don't know much. And there's 5 of Prabhupada's godbrothers preaching in ISKCON. And so of course we go to their class and we hear that we didn't fall from Vaikuntha, we fell from Brahman. So, really, or some little twist on how we should preach. It would have been a problem for us. I believe it would have been a problem. More than a help, it would have been confusing. Now, maybe not everyone agrees with that. But when Prabhupada was asking for his godbrothers to help, he was asking them to subordinate themselves to his leadership. That could have created some schisms amongst themselves also. It's possible. So it seems, just as Krishna didn't want Prabhupada to succeed in India, it seems that he didn't want Krishna didn't want anybody to help Prabhupada. That it was more unifying and focused to have Prabhupada do it himself. As far as the mentality of the godbrothers, they had their own missions, their own preaching. Apparently they didn't either feel that preaching in the West would be successful or it was a priority. Could have been a combination of both. But somehow or other that mission to preach in the West wasn't in their forefront, and they didn't take advantage of Prabhupada's request for them to back him. and make this happen. They didn't see it the way Prabhupada saw it. Prabhupada saw it as this is kind of like the culmination of the mission to get it out of India. But apparently they didn't see it that way. Or perhaps they felt they couldn't do it. But from what I could understand is they were busy in their own missions. I also heard from one of Prabhupada's godbrothers that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta asked him to go to the West, but he didn't feel comfortable. He said, I didn't feel comfortable with Western people, and I don't think I could have done it. So he told Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I don't think I'm fit for dealing with those people. So that could have also been part of it, but just they didn't feel that they could understand and mingle with those people, or maybe they felt very uncomfortable in that environment. And my analysis is that it took a very special person to adapt to that environment. And maybe we could say that none of the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta could have adapted well enough to make it happen. And so Krishna wanted Prabhupada to do it because he could adapt perfectly. I mean, if you see how Prabhupada adjusted the preaching, it's like inconceivable that he could so quickly understand Western mentality and adjust to it. Because if you go to another country, it takes time to understand people. Like we have devotees here from China, I preach in China. It's a very different way of thinking than America. And I still am trying to understand it. Or Prabhupada's in America, he got it. And he had to adjust Krishna consciousness for that environment. And he was the first person to do it. So in my estimation, that was something extremely rare. And I don't know if anyone else could have done it. And I don't know if others tried to do it, it would have created a problem. Now, once Prabhupada did it, it kind of like he set the scene for others to do it after him. So many of the disciples of Prabhupada's godbrothers are now preaching around the world. But Prabhupada showed how to do it, so he made it easier. And he showed it was possible. But I think ultimately we would have to say Krishna didn't want it. He wanted Prabhupada to do it alone. Because Prabhupada tried to get help and he couldn't. And it was like nobody wanted to help him. I mean, in spirit they wanted to help. But practically, nobody could come. Nobody was ready to come. That's all I could say. Is that okay? You have an idea? Different idea? I'm just saying, personally as a disciple, I think I would have found that very difficult if there were many of Prabhupada's godbrothers. I just can't imagine how it would have worked. And then, we're going back and forth. Well, this godbrother's preaching this, and this one's preaching that, and Prabhupada, what's right? And then Prabhupada is talking to them, and they don't agree, and we're watching that. It's like, well, what do we do? And they want to initiate us, but we want to get initiated from Prabhupada. And I don't know how, I can't see that it would have worked.
But actually we have experienced that, because after Prabhupada's departure, like Narayana Maharaj was for some time a person who was inspiring his devotees to Sridhar Maharaj, and we saw all the problems because they had just different mood, and many moods were confused. Probably what you said.
Yeah. It's true. We've seen. It's difficult for different organizations to work together. And then Prabhupada creates ISKCON, but then they're preaching on behalf of Gaudiya Math, and they make devotees, and whose disciples should they be, and should they work in Gaudiya Math or ISKCON? I can't see it working. I wouldn't know how it could have worked. And that's why I think Krishna arranged no one would help Prabhupada. And the other reason Krishna may have arranged it is because it's more glorious. Prabhupada did it alone, and all the glory went to him. And if others, the glory would have been divided if he didn't do it. So, there's just, you have this movie of Prabhupada doing it, but there's 5 people that came and did, a lot. It's less glorious. To do it alone with no help, that's glorious, isn't it? Like if you go to Mongolia, you go alone to Mongolia and you come back in a year with like 100 Mongolians. Wow, that's amazing. But if you go with 10 devotees, yeah, well, that was amazing, but not that amazing. But doing it on your own, and you go there in the winter, yeah. And you're living in some remote village and, living in a barn or something. Yeah, that would be amazing. Yes?
I don't know if this question is not quite on topic, but how do we see these difficulties in working together in different moods, like let's say how we and at the same time we have the saying that Prabhupada created a home where the world can
Venerad is asking, we see that devotees are different, they have different moods, different ways of thinking. Not only devotees, people all over the world have different ways of thinking, some more liberal, some more conservative, some more in the middle, a little both. So how are we going to work with these differences? Well, one answer to the question is often how Prabhupada would answer it. Somehow or other, do it. So of course that doesn't answer your question, but that starts the beginning of the answer. That we have to do it. It's a mandate. We have to do it. Now, what system would work best to make that happen? Obviously a system of I'm right, you're wrong, or you're telling me I'm wrong, you're right, that doesn't work, because it separates us. So there has to be a system where we can work either together or side by side independently and allow in a way that's harmonious. And it may be that we maintain our own views, but we're still working harmoniously. We have our projects, they have different cultures, different ideals, but we respect one another. So I think that's the most practical. Some kind of mutual respect. I understand your point. I see why you feel this way. I don't see it like that. I don't think that's the best way to do it. Or I see what you're doing as a viable alternative, but it's not the way I think. And I can understand what you're doing will work for certain people. But there are other people I feel it won't work for, and I want to address those people. And then we have mutual respect. Prabhupada said this, that's true, but he also said this. The application will be different in a different environment, and let's see how we can do both or synergize both. Maybe there's something better than what you're saying and something better than what I'm saying. We could explore that also. That's it. That requires some detachment and some broad-mindedness to be able to do that. Especially if you are convinced I'm wrong, like 100%. That's going to be difficult for you to do. It also requires a sufficient amount of respect, because if you disagree with me, but you respect me, you could think, I don't understand why you would think this way, but because I respect you, I have to accept that there's a Krishna conscious reason. That there has to be Krishna consciousness in what you're saying, even though it doesn't fully make sense to me, but I have to respect that. That you see it from a different Krishna conscious perspective. And I respect it, but I respect it from a distance. It's not the way I see it. Like recently, a devotee posted something. I forget exactly what he was saying, but my response to what he said was, he's making Prabhupada, this is how I felt, he's making Prabhupada into a Prabhupada I never met. He's making Prabhupada have a certain attitude towards certain people or situations. He's making Prabhupada say things, or taking what he said and putting it into a context that I never saw Prabhupada do. So for me to accept him entirely is very difficult because I don't see the Prabhupada that he sees. But I have to respect that that's how he sees Prabhupada. He sees a different Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's a very broad person, so he can be different people to different devotees. And if we could respect that, then we could work together. But if we don't respect that, we're going to try to smash one another down. Who can knock the other one down? And that's not going to work. It's not going to work for us, and it's not going to work for preaching. And I know devotees have strong feelings about this because I might think that you misunderstood the philosophy, so I do have to smash you down. You're misrepresenting Prabhupada. You're contaminating. You're watering it down and so forth. But again, I think a lot of that comes from a lack of respect for you. That I'm not respecting that you understand Krishna consciousness. That you understand. I'm disrespecting your intelligence and I'm disrespecting your sincerity. And we shouldn't make those assumptions. It's better we say, okay, this is according to who he is as a person and how he understands Prabhupada, he's come to these conclusions. So these conclusions are valid for people like him. They will see it this way. I don't see it this way. I know many people who don't. So we need to have space for it. Executing Krishna consciousness according to various understandings.
But it makes us, next generations, putting us in a very awkward situation.
Yeah.
When we hear different Prabhupada's disciples, like showing him in a different way, sometimes very, like how to say, as you said, you didn't see Prabhupada the way as it's devotees see him. Like, let's say I'm hearing you and then I'm hearing him and I'm confused. And because we didn't meet Prabhupada personally, we don't have any experience about him, a personal experience. And honestly, I can say that I'm very careful who I'm hearing. Even Prabhupada's disciples, because I don't want to offend anyone, and sometimes I just don't understand the way those people see Krishna consciousness or Prabhupada. And
yeah, well, you have a right.
I can just confuse some.
You have a right to, if you feel a certain Prabhupada disciple is presenting Krishna consciousness in a way that doesn't resonate with you or resonate with your spiritual master. The other way you could see is they're presenting an aspect of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's multifaceted personality, and his preaching is broad. So they're just presenting different aspects of Prabhupada.
The most difficult for me is when I hear that, let's say, other God brothers are criticizing my guru.
Yeah, of course.
And it's very difficult for me to respect them because he's my guru and I hear like really weird things they are talking about him.
Yeah, that's
but
definitely.
At the same time, they are senior devotees, they are Prabhupada's disciples,
Yeah.
and when I meet them, I feel, this is
Yeah, well, she's saying sometimes a devotee a senior devotee has criticized her spiritual master. Obviously, you're going to feel awkward. So therefore, Prabhupada said, respect at a distance and don't get involved. But that's not such a common thing that they'll be criticized. It's unfortunate. It's going to require maturity, for sure.
I thought we should cut off the tongue of that person who is criticizing our guru.
Yeah, but he might be someone else's guru. So if you cut his tongue, you're going to get your tongue cut by a lot of people.
But we have experience that we witnessed a fight during the class.
Yes.
A fight between Prabhupada's disciples. And It was like in front of a group of devotees, and everyone was like totally in shock.
Yes.
They were almost like
Hare Krishna. Anyway, these are more isolated incidents. And it's again, it's part of growing and understanding how to deal with various opinions, and it requires lots of discussion of the issues to bring in both sides, to understand what the opposing party is saying and consider it. And then you'll come to your own decisions, and then you'll follow those decisions, and you'll respect those who come from a different perspective. Like we've been discussing, Krishna Karshan and I, we've been discussing the origin of the jiva falling into the material world, and you can find things where Prabhupada clearly said we were with Krishna, and you can find things, especially outside of what Prabhupada said, even things Prabhupada said, but specifically outside, that we were never with Krishna. And that's confusing. And so, what did your guru say? What did Prabhupada say? What do others say? You're reading, you're listening. And even gurus in ISKCON will say, we came from Brahman, not Vaikuntha. And so, these are realities of... What?
They usually say from Mahavishnu.
Yeah. That's another one. But that's not the standard Gaudiya Math definition. But anyway, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he studied religion, and he said, don't worry about this. This is just normal. Every religion goes through this. Not goes through it. Every religion is dealing with this. Different angles of vision. It's just a reality we're going to have to learn to deal with. Okay, so we can stop here. Thank you for coming, and all success to you in your Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki Go Premanand.
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu.